Alright, so back to this. It's been a while since I've talked and or went over this series. The last video I made was going over a potential complete rewrite of the show. Obviously, that never came to fruition simply because I don't really have the time or energy to. I don't know why I thought I would be willing to do that, but again, that's why I have these short black screen videos. However, as you can tell by the title, and again, this is something I wanted to do for some time. I originally toyed with the idea of rewatching every single episode. However, again, same deal, right? Just don't have the time or energy to do that. So instead, I settled for every finale, which, again, isn't in actuality every finale. I just watched the season 2, 3, and 4 ones because the last episode I watched was the season 5 finale. And also, it wasn't the actual season 2, 3, and 4 finales. It was the extended compilation videos of them because I guess all of the episodes just got wiped off the face of the internet because the actual official MLB channel has started uploading sort of compilations for those episodes, right? The finales specifically. Granted, they're about like 15 to 20 minute clips of basically pretty much everything that happens in each of the, because each finale is 2 episodes, right? Season 2 finale, Heroes Day, Part 1, 2. Season 3 finale, Battle for the Miraculous, Part 1, 2. And then Season 4, Strike Back, Part 1, 2, right? So I watched the compilations for those 3 and just kind of wanted to go over my thoughts, right? Again, here's what I will say, because the big question I kind of wanted to answer for myself is, does the season 2 finale still hold up? As you know, I'm very vocal about that being quite possibly the best. Again, I ranked the finales, right? And besides being in my mind the best finale, it's also in my mind the best episode in the entire show, the season 2 finale, Part 1 and 2. I would put it, I still consider that, honestly, Paris, Heroes Day, or Jesus Christ, what was it? The Miraculous World Paris was also extremely good, but I still, again, and I put those two and equate to them to be at roughly a similar, what would you call it? At a similar level. But out of all of the actual, regular episodes, again, for me, season 2, the finale is still top, right? In fact, a lot of the season 2 episodes are up there in terms of being my favorite. And again, kind of the question I wanted to answer is, does the season 2 finale still hold up? And in my mind, yes, it does. That's one of the reasons why I rewatched them all. And just kind of, I don't want to say primary, but just the big question I want to answer. And again, after rewatching it, in my mind, it pretty much did everything perfectly. I unironically cannot think of it being meant any better. I can't think of a way they could have made it better. In my mind, they did it perfectly. It couldn't have been any better than it was, because it just did so many things, right? Probably the first and foremost is it's the first major power-up we've seen Hawkmoth had, right? Obviously, he had kind of been scheming during season 2, but that is the very first time we actually see him have a definitive spike and jump in power, where, again, he sets conditions so that he can release as many Akumas as possible. And especially because that is such a huge spike compared to only releasing 1. And up until that point, we had only really seen 5, if you don't include his Miraculous, in action. So again, it's something to where, for the time being, that was an extremely big deal, right? And it gives the viewer kind of shock of oh shit, he means business. How are they basically, it creates it's an impossible scenario where how can they possibly win against basically every single person who had been akumatized up until that point. So that's the first thing, right? And then again, because it's not only the fact that, in kind of as an extension of that, it's not only the fact that he was able to do that, it's that he had a multi-layered plan, not only leading up to that, but also during the battle with, again, the heroes, right? With the big thing being it's also the first time we see Hawkmoth in person when he lands at the Eiffel Tower. Up until before, we had never seen him leave, his lair, right? But that's the first time where we see and he actually engages with the superheroes in the show, right? Which, again, another big deal there on top of that layered plan, like I had mentioned. And, like, him literally fighting Ladybug and Cat Noir once it reaches kind of the end there. And again, just obviously what all that leads into is, and another reason why is Mayura in Mayura's entrance. Still, unironically, probably the most epic scene in the whole show. Mayura's first appearance. I still think that's probably the best scene in the entire show. If you go look at an individual scene, right? Again, and really just everything about it, right? The entire thing. I mean, you even get smaller stuff, like let's say, again, a big thing is, again, the Adrian Marinette's, scene at the end, right? Again, that was just the other thing that I kind of wanted to point out and notice. But again, so really kind of setting up Adrianette, at the end of season 2, right? Giving us some fan service there. But yeah, again, that's just... And then also, again, kind of culminating all the heroes as well as their powers during the season, right? As, again, that was the first time we had really seen, everyone in action at one point, right? So, but that just goes more into that final battle. But, again, I will say the one thing that was interesting is it definitely seems like, I'm not going to lie, you can definitely tell a difference in quality. Funny enough, I'm pretty sure, like, Season 2 definitively has the least quality out of, like, all the seasons, but unironically probably my favorite season, not due to that, but more so just and this goes for season 2 in general, right? I feel like up until that point in the season 2 finale, this show had been going in a pretty good direction. Let's be honest here, season 1 couldn't have been more than it was, but once again season 2 was introduced, we know, like, all right, this is going to be a, what would you call it, this is going to be a actual, like, show. This is going to be a Jesus Christ, what's the term? This is going to be a concrete show, right? It's not going to be one that just you see like one episode and it disappears off the face of the earth, right? Or one season. It is going to continue on. So with how they did season 2, given that in mind, I unironically think they pretty much did as good as they can with season 2, and then the season 2 finale holds up. So again, kind of turned into an analysis of season 2, but I feel like season 2 holds up, right? Now moving on to the season 3 finale. Because here's the thing, right? I'm going to be honest, season 3 is kind of where the show starts to go wrong, right? You know my thoughts on this, right? Jesus Christ, I need to crack my neck, but I can't fucking crack it. But as for the season 3 finale itself, I feel like it pretty much went, like, I feel like there were a couple things they could have improved, but other than that, I feel like the season 3 finale was actually really well done. What I noticed about the show is its finales, are usually done really well. However, the problem is usually the build-up, right? Where, for whatever reason, the writers just, I guess, I don't know, they don't, in terms of story, right? The writers don't do a great job with that. However, as for, the finales, they're actually done really well, despite the direction that the show is heading in. So, like, the season 3 finale, there are only a couple, like, granted, they're kind of big improves, but still, improves I could think of. The main one that, I could think of is... The main one that I could think of, right, is I still stand by Chat Noir should have been the Guardian. I think with the direction the show was going, especially in season 3, it should have been, in order to kind of balance out, the, I guess, favor towards Ladybug up until that point, that Chat Noir should have ended up being the Guardian. I think that would have made for a much more interesting, season 4, as opposed to kind of the season 4 that we got, is that would be just a major part of the show changed. I do think that is one thing that should have happened, but obviously didn't. So that's kind of the main thing. But also, unironically, I think that let's put it this way. One of the biggest flaws I think of season 3 is not because obviously Kagami and Luca were introduced before, but kind of introducing them as alternate love interests. The point is, in kind of, the problem with that is that season 2 had kind of, and again, I talked about the season 2 finale, right? It kind of, set up, and I don't want to say confirmed, but, it set up, in, again, yeah, kind of really confirmed, more so cemented Adrianette, right? And we all knew that Adrianette was going to be the show's end game, right? Or end, because if it wasn't, then ultimately it was just a waste of time for the first 2 seasons. So it was never going to be anything other than Adrianette. So the problem is introducing like them as alternate love interests in season 3. Really, again, kind of just it's like, all right, it's too late for this. We already know like Adrianette's going to be the end game. Maybe if they're introduced earlier on, they were introduced in season 2, but they didn't really fill that role just yet. However, the role that I do think they could have filled and like performed really well in is, if you know, right, or as you know, in season 4, Marinette told Halia that she's Ladybug, right? Unironically, I think that should have been a role given to Luca as well as Kagami. I think Marinette telling Luca over Alia that she's Ladybug would be a much, again, better actually decision, right? Given kind of the nature of Alia and who Marinette knows her as, even though she's her best friend, right? At the end of the day, like Luca is just a much more sound, like smart, logical, rational, and just overall, better, like kind of great person, right? Like let's put it that way, greater person. And then Adrian with Kagami, right? It could have been kind of a similar notion. Obviously, Kagami got kind of shafted, at least compared to Luca when it came to character development. However, that's something that I feel like he could have confided her in, and they could have potentially set that up during the season. At the very least, because, Adrian technically never told anyone he was Chat Noir, right? Again, the only person who ever knew was Luca as Viperion. However, I do think that at the very least, instead of saving the whole Marinette telling Alia in season 4, it should have really been her telling Luca during the season 3 finale. I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity there. But again, other than that, I think the whole idea of the season 3 finale works out. Granted, the main criticism, and I'm actually going to defend it, right? Because the main criticism is that, it assassinated Chloe's character arc and potential redemption. Don't get me wrong, I do think one of the biggest flaws of the show is Chloe's character, and specifically her not getting her redemption arc. However, I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the season 3 finale. Like, I think it made sense. Maybe at the end, Chloe should have, after losing, with Hawkmoth, right? I think she should have, her and Ladybug should have had kind of a making up. Again, I don't think it's on the fault of the season 3 finale itself. Because, again, kind of the whole point and why I think the season 3 finale is so well written and, like, kind of how they went about doing it is, let's put it this way, right? In season 2, Scarlet Moth, Hawkmoth basically did everything he could to get Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous, right? Just, like, to put it in layman's terms, it was a frontal attack or assault, right? That sounds kind of cringe, but, however, in the season 3 finale, he was making a play for practically everything besides their Miraculous, right? It was more of an envelopment. He made a play at Chloe's allegiance. He made a play at the Guardian, right? At their identities. He pretty much went for everything besides their Miraculous. And, because of a couple mistakes made, particularly Marinette not de-transforming as Ladybug, and I guess the mistake on Hawkmoth's part is the continual use of Majora's, but it ended up paying off, right? Or I guess a mistake there would be kind of Ladybug not trusting, really Marinette fucking up with 2 decisions, right? Her not de-transforming and then her not trusting Chloe, right? As that was kind of the decision making or the deciding factor, right? In a decision point when it came to, again, her sign with Hawkmoth, right? again, that led to the success of Hawkmoth, right? You know, kind of making a play for everything besides their Miraculous, and it actually kind of working out, right? You know, ultimately, Chloe hates Ladybug, right? The Guardian's out of the picture. Again, like a lot of the social relationship, you know, parasocial relationships, right? You know, of the heroes as well as just main characters have been, you know, ruined, or I don't want to say ruined, but kind of strained, right? Again, and then at the end of the day, you know, the final scene, we see him actually getting, you know, fixing the Peacock Miraculous, right? Getting the journal for that. So again, season 3 finale. Granted, I do think season 3 overall, and I do have videos going over what this season should have looked like. I think season 3 was the start of where the show went wrong. I do think the season 3 finale was good, bar those couple improves that I mentioned. But it is something to where it's mostly on the direction of the show itself rather than, again, the finale, or the direction of the show as a whole rather than the finale itself, right? The season 3 finale, in my mind, still holds up. Now, season 4 finale. For a similar deal as the season, it's basically the same as season 3, right? You know, season 3, again, I think started to take the show in the wrong direction. So season 4, you know, kind of, it was still going in the wrong direction, right? But again, the season 4 finale, I think, was pretty good, right? Like, I think, you know, it holds up. The big thing with that, right, is, again, because obviously, you know, as opposed to, and compared to, let's say, the season 2 and 3 finale, right? You know, the season 4 finale wasn't really, it was a very basic plan rooted in a pretty, like, it was a basic plan rooted in a very, I'd say, what would you call it? Because, and this is obviously from Hawkmoth's perspective, Gabriel's perspective, right? It was a basic plan compared to what he had done before in a basic idea, right? Again, the whole idea of risk, right, and strike back. With risk, it's like, all right, create an akumatized victim who will infect Paris and cause its citizens to take more risks, right? Basically, you know, be more, again, risk-taking, for lack of a better term. And then again, he'll create a Sentimonster, right? Which, to be fair, is a very powerful one. The ability to replicate, you know, whatever power it's hit by, with the idea basically being that, you know, Ladybug, in her efforts, you know, especially since it had been like nearly an entire day, in her effort to defeat the Sentimonster, at some point she will end up slipping up and making a mistake that will, if not cost their Miraculous, right, put her in a severely worsened position, right? Because season 4, the big thing is, obviously Hawkmoth schemes in season 2, and he schemes in season 3, right? You know, but it's mostly just him using Mayora and bringing her into the fold. Season 4, as Shadowmoth, we really kind of see him start to, you know, really flesh out what he's doing, right? You know, flesh out his powers, and especially, again, with, let's say, Felix brought into the fold, right? As well, Lila kind of became irrelevant in season 4, but with Felix brought into the fold, right? Lila, I guess, still thought in the back of his mind, on top of, you know, really him just having his new powers, right? And kind of really seeing what the power of 2 Miraculous can bring, right? Especially ones like the Hawkmoth in, or Jesus Christ, the Butterfly and Peacock, which synergize really well. I mean, it's practically, if you think about it, it's practically the same ability, just one transforms the person and one creates an object bound to that person. But they each can practically give whatever person or object any sort of ability, again, that it wants, right? That the wearer desires, which, again, you know, synergize really well. We really see him make the most and make use of it, right? Again, so, but it's something to where it was, at the end of the day, a very basic idea, rooted in a very, I guess, basic kind of, you know, it was a basic plan rooted in a basic idea, but one that, again, fundamentally changed the game, right? As we saw, you know, again, at the end, right, where Ladybug did make a mistake, right? Again, entrusting the dog Miraculous to Felix rather than Adrian, right? And again, that winding up with him getting all Miraculous besides, obviously, you know, Ladybug and Cat Noirs as well as the Peacock, given that that was what he traded to Felix. Again, and because and this is something to where, especially post season 5, because we really see in season 5 how synonymous, and tied to Fate the Ladybug Miraculous is. It's actually one of the strongest Miraculous as a result, right? We see this as it is able to overcome second chance. Again, Hawkmoth using second chance, right? Given it's able to adapt to whatever whatever situation, and is able to bring out whatever desired end result, right? Again, really something that really shows how synergized and synonymous it is with Fate itself. So, again, and that's why, Hawkmoth was simply just never able to beat a Ladybug, right? Because, again, her outcome would always be to be fated to win, up until, again, he fundamentally altered her mental state and risk, right? Or I guess her decision-making process there, which, again, it makes sense, right? Obviously, that never happens in season 5, but at season 5, it's much more about, again, obviously, he's every arm miraculous, so there's no need to recreate that, right? But, again, really, what it comes down to there is, again, season 4 continued going. Granted, by the end of season 4, I do feel like it had kind of almost done a full show reset, as I feel like the writers, they must have not realized what they were doing when they were writing season 3. I mean, because that's really where it all kind of starts to go downhill and in the wrong direction. And I think season 4, they kind of realized, like, oh yeah, we just need to reset the show. So, again, that's what they did, and then that leads into season 5, right? But again, the season 4 finale holds. The only way I would potentially look at improving it, again, right, and sort of, I guess, elevating it there, is now that we know why Felix likes, or wanted the Peacock Miraculous, right? I do think it's something too where one of the big things is, I think that would have been a perfect point in time for, obviously, because it didn't even happen in season 5, but I think that would have been a perfect time for Ladybug and Chat Noir to figure out each other's identities, right? Or to potentially reveal their identities, right? At the end of season 4, right? When, again, Felix snatches Ladybug's yo-yo, right? And, again, Adrian just tells Ladybug to de-transform. I feel like that would have been similar to, again, Marinette telling Luca, right? I feel like, unironically, obviously, it goes against one of the main kind of principles of the show, or something that had been upheld so long in the earlier seasons. However, given the direction the show had been and kind of how much the show had been, like, really kind of one-upping itself, I just feel like that would have been a perfect time to do that there, and it's kind of really a missed opportunity. Again, in season 5, again, I'm not going to go over the season 5 finale, right, because, I mean, it's literally, the season 5 finale needed to happen. I felt like the season 5 finale was, again, pretty good, right? Like, all the finales, like the season 2 finale, I don't think could have been any better. But the season 3, 4, and 5 finale, it was only really one or two things, right? But the finales as a whole, pretty good. Like, some of the best episodes in the series, right? Because, again, season 5 finale just needed to happen. Like, I hate to say it, the show had reached the point of no return, basically going into season 5. So the show reset just needed to happen. But again, as for, season, because funny enough, season 5, I felt like started going off in a really good direction. It was like around the midpoint of season 5 where it's like, all right, now they're doing a complete 180, right? But, because let's put it this way, going across all seasons as a whole, I've said this, and again, I know this was originally going over the season finales, right? However, as for the show itself, again, I've said this, the one big change they could make to actually, like, improve the show is make Gabriel sympathetic villain, right? Again, actually make him, and again, this is kind of I'm not gonna lie, after I watched a Sentimonster hint compilation, and there were so many hints that flew under the radar, right? Like, I'm gonna be honest, I was genuinely surprised since they committed to the whole Sentimonster thing, but it is something to where, with all the kind of hints that were dropped, it does make sense. But also, I just feel like it's kind of like, all right, granted, it also did answer a lot of questions we had about kind of the origin of the Butterfly and Peacock Miraculous, them ending up in Gabriel's hands, right? And ultimately, how kind of basically everything played out, right, from that point on. But, again, I just feel like overall, really the main problem is that he's just not a sympathetic villain, you know? Like, I say he's still, or I don't even want to say sympathetic, redeemable, right? He should have stayed a redeemable villain. In my mind, season 3 is where he loses that redeemability. Through, in season 1 and 2, I still view him as redeemable, right? Season 3 onward, no, not the case. And then obviously that also happens to be when Chloe kind of loses her redemption arc, right? Thomas Ashbrook just completely destroys her character arc, right? Assassinates her character. So yeah, season 3 is kind of where it all went wrong. But yeah, those are the big two things, right? I'd say. Again, I guess we'll see what season 6. Again, I'm straying away from the topic at hand. I just want to go over the season finales here. And at the end of the day, season 2 finale does hold up. Still probably my favorite episode in the entire show. Season 3, 4, and I guess if you include 5, really good finales, right? Only one or two things I'd potentially be improving. They're more so just bogged down by kind of the direction that the show as a whole had been going in. I can separate the finales from kind of the 20-some episodes leading up to them, right? Again, just want to throw that out there. But, again, with that, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. Again, what it ends up coming down to there is just, yeah, we'll see, when season 6 comes out. I'll start making videos on each and every episode as per usual, right? I will say I have, again, and another thing, right, Lila's character. Felix's character, I was originally saying his character shouldn't have been in the show at all. Granted, he kind of pulled through in season 5. Lila, after rewatching the season 2 finale, it's again, what is the point of her character, right? That's kind of the big thing. She was originally introduced as kind of as opposed to Chloe being the Mean Girls bully, Lila was introduced as kind of the actual, I guess, social side main antagonist, right? Again, for the social side things in the friend group. Rather than, again, Chloe's kind of just the stereotypical Mean Girls bully. Lila was going to be the actual, kind of the one to usurp that. And, I mean, again, it's just a question of, so again, I'll even say besides Chloe because it kind of ties in with Chloe getting shafted out of her redemption arc, because it would have made perfect sense given Lila's character. Because the question is, alright, besides Gabriel being not redeemable, alright, why is Lila doing this? Is she really only doing all of this because she hates Marinette? That is so fucking petty, and there needs to be something else going into that, right? Because chances are, I don't think Lila is going to get redeemed like Gabriel, or at least quote unquote redeemed. Because at the end of the day, Gabriel, it's like he was saying, he tells Marinette oh, make sure he remembers the times I tried to be a good father. It's those are very few and far between. But again, the question is kind of, all right, is Lila really doing all this just because she hates Marinette? I mean, she got exposed at the end of season 5, but that was literally because, but even all the way up until that point, she hadn't. So she, again, was able to just, kind of live her own life and really kind of, actually, obviously Marinette, kind of caught on to her, but she was the one who kind of set out and, had a personal vendetta against Marinette. She didn't even really have a thing for Adrian, unlike, let's say, Chloe. Or, Kagami, right? Again, but it's just why. But again, besides that, I'm getting off topic. I'm just going to end it here. I went over what I need to, so don't really need to talk about anything else. So, yep, that's it for this one. See you in the next one.